to the Efed podcast. The podcast exploring our fantasy wrestling hobby, where the wrestling is written, but the characters are real. I'm your host, Mikey Unlikely, and I'd like to thank you for joining us here on the Atomic Dropcast Network. It's 2020, everybody. It's a new year, new me. Who dis? Did I do that right? I hope everyone out there in fantasy wrestling world had a fantastic holiday season, and you're all still hungover from the wild party that sent us into the new decade. How cool is that? eWrestling in 2020. If you guys are digging the show, go ahead and subscribe on whatever platform you're using. Give us a review. We would greatly appreciate it. If you want to interact with us, you can find us on Twitter at the Efed Podcast. We've got a Discord server you can be a part of. We're open to hearing from you. We want to hear your suggestions, your constructive criticisms, and your baseless accusations. Speaking of suggestions, we're looking for a nickname for the listeners of the show. Who's got some ideas? Tweet us at the Efed Podcast. What about the Efed Podcats? That's a terrible name. What about the Unlikables? Named after Mikey Unlikely, as suggested by Linz. What do you guys think it should be? Other ideas? Tweet us at the Efed Podcast. Episode 9, we had to mix up the schedule a bit because of some availability or lack thereof during the holiday. So, curveball. This week on the show, we've got the Efed Question of the Week brought to you by the EWC. We've got one of my close personal friends in the game, Billy, on the show, the handler of Elise Ares, the former handler of Vivica J Valentine. Stay tuned for that. It's a great interview, and of course, as always, we've got the Feds list. Before we get into all of that, let's hear from our sponsors.
Defiance, an Angle Fed boasting 8 years of continuous fantasy wrestling. Defiance offers opportunities for original characters, micros, a standalone website utilizing Backstage 3 script, and a forum hosted on the long-running eWrestling.com, as well as a roster full of some of the most experienced writers in the game. Come see for yourself at DefianceWrestling.com. That's DefianceWrestling.com.
It's time for the Feds list. The XWF has been around in different incarnations since 1999. Its current incarnation has been going steady since 2012. 3 distinct brands, all with different RP rules to suit styles ranging from short to people who want to write 5 to 10,000 words per match. Feel free to shoot questions or check out the website at www.xwf99.com. That's XWF, the numbers 99.com. Spawned in 2015, New Extremes Wrestling displays the extremes that wrestlers will go to achieve their goals. They have a weekly show, Brawl, and an end-of-month rotation between Flashback, their free extended events, and their new promotion, British Wrestling Injection, with its own unique rule set. Flashback is a look back at some of the most historic matches in NEW history. With NEW Year 2019, their WrestleMania or Wrestle Kingdom, all the titles will be on the line and 2 golden tickets will be won. You can check them out at newrestling.moonfruit.com. That's newrestling.moonfruit.com. Professional RPG wrestling is a great place that's always looking for new talent. If you have time on your hands for writing, this is a great place. It's a competitive match writing fed where you take turns to progress through a match, and the one who sells it the best wins. Check it out at professionalrpgwrestling.jcinc.net. That's professionalrpgwrestling.jcinc.net. The Online Wrestling Federation is opening its doors once again for another action-packed year. OWF is a weekly Xbox CAW storyline-based federation with 2 main shows per week, Excel and Impulse. They are currently in need of more jaw-dropping talent, specifically tag teams, as well as heavyweights and women's superstars. If you're interested in joining, check them out on Twitter at OWF_YT. That's OWF_YT. Whirlwind Wrestling is a Fed that's implicitly not your average Fed. We proudly march to the mantra of anything is possible in professional wrestling. Solely written and produced by a single individual, that person boasts 13 years of Efed experience. Plus, we've all had that experience where we had a killer roleplay that got judged on the arbitrary basis of one person's opinion. Not to worry, because Whirlwind Wrestling is totally Angle Efed, meaning you and the other writer you're working with produce the storyline you want. It's totally no pressure Efed. Join Whirlwind Wrestling today at whirlwindproductions.proboards.com. That's whirlwindproductions.proboards.com. Championship Wrestling Federation, the best, the elite. The greatest you will ever see, feel, and experience. The CWF, now the last only play-by-email eWrestling federation, has spots open for new talent, match writers, and more. In a world of eFeds, the CWF has remained head and shoulders above the rest. Check them out today, geocities.ws/CWF. Blood and Nation Promotions is run completely by artificial intelligence, known affectionately as BAN. With more than 20 wrestlers already on the roster, we'd love to have you come and try your hand at winning the Blood title, which is fought 24/7. In 2020, a world title will be introduced, so contact Stanton Enterprises today to get involved. At Stanton ENT on Twitter. That's STANTONENT on Twitter. And if you want to advertise your Fed here on the eFed Podcast, get at us on Twitter at the eFed Podcast. Shoot us your pitch, what you're looking for, and give us a link to your Fed, and you could be on a future episode as well.
Hey, this is Pete Russo, no relation to Vince. Listen to Valerian's Garden, buy my book, One Chance, The Legend of Valerian's Garden, and you are all in on the eFed Podcast.
Hashtag buy Pete's book. It's time for the eFed Question of the Week, brought to you by the EWC. The Extreme Wrestling Corporation is the game's longest-running roleplay eFed, having been established in 1997. With over 100 active roleplayers across 4 unique brands, the EWC offers opt-in booking on all of its bi-weekly shows. I think they just added quite a few more handlers, so we're well above the 100 mark now. Home to Stranglemania and the 4-day wrestling festival known as WrestleFest, which was awesome this year, the EWC is built on its welcoming community with zero bias and no drama. All styles are welcome. Check out the EWC today at ewc4life.com. EWC, the number 4, life.com. This week's question of the week is, what is your eWrestling New Year's resolution? At Antidote Spencer, keep working to go down as the Action Wrestling GOAT. Earned Triple Crown recently when I became US champ. Now it's just about working towards more of the same. This guy wants to be the greatest of all time in Action Wrestling. At WI's Finest, my goal is to venture into a higher word count. I've been working in Action Wrestling's 700 division for a while now, so I'm looking to explore the 1,000, 3,000, etc. divisions. That and overall improving my writing as much as I can. Great goals to look forward to. Upping his game and looking to improve. Love to hear that. Action Wrestling, appreciate you guys listening to the podcast and supporting the show. At Joe the Boss CWF, my New Year's resolution: simply keep doing what I have successfully maintained during the past 20 years, running the best written Fed that is out there, out of character and in character. At Titanus Sam, I am going to see about having Sam win gold in EWC for sure. It's been one of the few places she's yet to hold a championship so far. I'm also going to see about trying to make more characters. I've been scared Sam is the only successful original character I can make. I'm going to prove myself wrong and hopefully work on improving my confidence. Great goals to shoot for, Titanus Sam. Like to hear that stuff. This is a good writing hobby, and we have the opportunity to bounce our writing off of other writers to hopefully help everybody improve in the process. At IW Puddings, to get my brothers Tapioca and Fudge married. Someone please marry them. They are good at yard work, and they can sleep in any size closet or air vent. at IW Puddings, another fun follow on Twitter machine. At That's Azzy Vebbins. Resolutions: become Vanguard Pro Bellatrix champion, defeating Rhea Ripley. Wrest control away from Dolores when we rumba at MHW. Murder She Wrote on February the 2nd, and compete in more #Dream Dances. That's Azzy Vebbins, huge supporter of the show. Thanks for answering the question of the week this week at XER0ENT. To make an impact in the world of COFEDs, whether in Fire Pro or 2K. Just looking to make his mark. I like that. Check out at XER0ENT on Twitter. At Molly_Hatchet. Make Molly's multi-fed Hatchet clan family / faction a real thing. It never really got off the traction I wanted when it began, and I'd like the idea of a group of non-elitist friends banding together to support each other against elite heel factions. Sounds like a pretty good idea to me. Would be pretty cool to see in some angle feds. At Hero Highspot. To land a job so I can come back to work with places like at AW Wrestle, at Scum Uncensored, at MHW On Tour, at Hybrid_Wrestle, so I can get the confidence back that I lack to return to at SCW Wrestling 1 and even at Stranglemania. Don't put yourself down at Hero Highspot. All it takes is some hard work and some consistency to be a good character in this game. At RickDickDPW, my eWrestling New Year's resolution is to get both Rick and Turn It Up Express more notice. I have the feeling that writing comedy characters and promos is where I belong, as does my teammate. So we're just going to do our best to make people laugh. Love that. I wrote comedy wrestling for the first, 5-6 years of my eWrestling career. Love it. I still lean on it. Mikey Unlikely, still a funny character. Keep going, Rickdiculous. At Jordan Snow on the Discord. My eWrestling resolution is to provide timely graphics and help the FWF.com for anything it needs. Ben Halcomb has done a fantastic job keeping results coming on time, developing awesome storylines for the handlers, and making sure all the functions of the website don't break. My resolution and goal for the new year is to be Ben's backup so that there's never a lull, and it's my goal to see the FWF.com last the entire year with no interruptions. Another awesome goal, check out the FWF.com, fun little fed over there. They're working on it every day to make it better, so check it out, thefwf.com. If you would like to answer the eFed question of the week, check us out on Twitter at the eFed Podcast. That's where we post it every Monday. Go ahead and comment there, and your answer could be read on the show. All right, guys, welcome back to another edition of The Interview here on the eFed Podcast. This week, we've got Billy, the handler of Elise Ares and former handler of Vivica J Valentine, a.k.a. Billy in the Field. Billy, how are you?
I'm good. Things are great out here in the field. It's getting a little chilly, but other than that, things are going good.
Billy, live from the fields of Ohio. Glad to have you here. Thanks for joining us today.
Oh, no problem.
Me and Billy go way back. We've been playing together for, 3 or 4 years now. And we've run into each other a couple times, and we've had a great time.
Yeah, I've had a great time. Lots of wrestling shows, and hopefully a lot more in the future.
So, Billy, let's get started here. How did you get into wrestling?
I don't remember. So my earliest memories, I was already watching wrestling, so I'm not real sure. Okay. I remember having some shoes when I was like 4 that had like the Macho Man and Ultimate Warrior and Hulk Hogan on them. And I remember spending lots of mornings in the house playing my own entrance music before I walk into the living room and hiking the old crew socks up to my ankles and walking out in the tighty whities and ripping a Kroger bag off my chest. So
your life's come full circle.
My life's come full circle. I just did that last night. It was crazy.
So your parents were wrestling fans?
Yeah, not really. I mean, My dad would watch wrestling with me, but he was not a wrestling fan before me. I had uncles who were wrestling fans, and all my cousins are wrestling fans. I'm thinking that my parents must have just flipped to the stations, and I saw it one day, and they had to watch it because I wanted to watch it. So
There you go. Yeah. So who were your favorite wrestlers growing up? Obviously, Hulkamaniac.
yeah, I was a Hulkamaniac, but I was also a really big Macho Man Randy Savage fan. I actually liked Macho Man more than Hulk Hogan. And I remember when I was little, when Hulk Hogan got turned on by the Macho Man and the Mega Power split up, is when I was crying and I was unconsolable and I would refuse to watch wrestling anymore. And my dad had to take me on a drive and explain to me that wrestling was fake and that the Macho Man wouldn't really do that to Hulk Hogan. It was all scripted.
And that they were best buds in real life.
But they're probably best buds backstage, but it's just a show. They got to put on a good show. So
That's amazing. Do you have a Randy Savage impression?
not a good one, if that's what you're asking for. Well, my favorite Randy Savage is like, he'll cut promos and he'll talk real low and then he'll get real loud for no reason.
That was awesome. That's a good one. And it's very true. 90% of impressions, I tell Brian this all the time, 90% of impressions are just getting the cadence right. It has nothing to do with the actual voice.
Yeah, and every once in a while, just innocent with "yeah," and then you'll be good.
I want you to just throw them in randomly in the interview. Just
I
pepper
can
them
do
in
that.
there. Yeah.
I pepper them in there.
Oh, shit. So how did you find eWrestling? So besides Hulk Hogan, who were your favorites?
I liked Shawn Michaels a whole lot as I got older. I was a big HBK fan. I tend to fall on the Shawn Michaels side of the Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels argument that you guys have on the Atomic Podcast.
The Atomic what? Jimmy Hart?
The Atomic Dropcast.
Fuck you, Brian.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm just taking cues from Jimmy Hart. So he's in the Hall of Fame. He can't be wrong.
You can't be wrong. The Atomic Pod Drop Amazecast. Check it out. AtomicDropcast.com.
Yeah, cheap plug. You can find some Owen and some barrels there, and you'll be good to go.
So Hulk Hogan and Shawn Michaels.
Yeah, Macho Man. And then later on, I became like a big. I started liking the heels a lot more. As I got more smart to the business, I started appreciating like Flair and all those guys and what they do.
Absolutely.
But when I was a kid, I was just like, fuck those guys.
Pin them, rip your shirt off.
Yeah.
Hogan must pose. So now, how did you find eWrestling?
So my parents got a computer kind of late. Like I remember everyone in my school having like computers and the internet before me. And I want to say it was like 98 or 99 when my parents got like a compact Presario and brought it home. And I started getting on to all the wrestling stuff. And I used to go on this, I don't know if you remember this or not, Mikey, it was a WWF trivia, like Java page. Like they would constantly loop 10 random WWF trivia questions and they would like have people click on them. And then whoever got the fastest response would be like on a leaderboard or whatever.
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
And I would just like religiously be on there. I would spend like hours just in that, cycling through. And then they were like regulars, and we had like a fake championship belt where we'd like defend it against each other. And we were all there so often that we knew who the champion was. And then when they'd come in and be like, "I challenge you to a trivia championship match," and then we'd just do stupid stuff like that. But one of the people in there started spamming this advertisement for a place called ICW, Insane Championship Wrestling. And I did not know what it was, and they asked me to join, and I went and checked it out, and I looked at it, and I'm like, I don't think I'm capable of doing this, but thank you for the invitation. And they're like, "No, dude, everyone sucks. You'll be fine." So I was like, okay. And that's kind of how I got into it.
And so who was the first character there?
I was Extreme Billy Starr. I was the biggest Hardy Boys knockoff that you could ever make in your life.
You said Hardy Boys?
Hardy Boys knockoff. Yeah, Matt Hardy picked face and everything.
There you go.
Yeah. and I would get so pissed when I go into Feds and somebody else had Matt Hardy already. I wouldn't know what to do with myself.
I'm not joining this Fed.
Yeah, I can't do that. There's no Matt Hardy. He's already taken.
So how did your career evolve from there? Where did you go from there?
Well, through there, because that was like an original character Fed, I started finding out about all those Feds where you could like be a real wrestler and role play as them. And I remember I did Chris Jericho a couple times. And then I remember joining this one that I thought was like, there were so many characters in it already taken that it had to have been, in my mind, like the best of all these Feds. Because there were like 60 people there, and it was such slim pickings for a character. So I was forced to be Shane McMahon, because it's like no one else available, because there were so many people in this Fed. And I ended up winning the World Championship as Shane McMahon. And I was like, this is completely unrealistic, but...
Here we are, yeah.
Here we are.
You just randomly showed up and jumped off of things.
Yep, that's what I did, yeah. It's like, you have a Tron? I could jump off of it.
Oh, you want me to win? Oh.
Oh, yeah.
So after Shane McMahon...
I remember a couple of the people I was in a Fed with told me about this place called Super Athletes Wrestling Federation. It was the SAWF. And it wasn't like E-Feds were... The SOF. And it wasn't like E-Feds were at the time. It was run by a company called Saphosoft, and it was like a subscription-only Fed. And the reason it was subscription-only is because the entire Fed was ran on a pretty complex, like, numbers engine. Like, every week after you'd wrestle, you would earn points to put into the, like, strength or speed or charisma of your character.
Okay.
And then, like, your role plays were judged, and then based on your role plays, you were given a bonus to your stats according to how your role plays were judged against the person you were doing the role play battle with. And then the simulation would just run the results and they'd be posted. So there was really, like, no match writing involved. There were segments, and you could do, like, post-match attacks and stuff and write that in. But it was all organized by an engine. And I was like 17 or 16 when I got in here. And I joined, and then after I joined, I said, so I'm 16 years old, and I can't pay a subscription fee. And they were like, well, you're just a kid, it's fine, but when you turn 18, you're going to have to start paying. So I was like, okay, but until then, I'm good. So I didn't pay to be in this place for like 2 years, and then by the time that I turned 18, they had already canceled the subscription fees, and the company that ran this had kind of given up on the model already, and the people who were there were kind of running the Fed. We had access to everything, and so there was like no outside involvement from anyone from that parent company anymore, besides one day they stopped paying the bill for it, and the website shut down, and that was the end of that.
Well, that's certainly different.
Right.
Yeah.
But during my time there is when I told you previously, and some other people know, that I had applied for Action Wrestling through a guy who was in SAWF with me. And I never heard back from it, so I just assumed I wasn't good enough for the poser Feds. So, but that's life.
Yeah. And so, when did Vivica become a thing?
Well, I had actually left eWrestling after SAWF closed because I didn't really know what else to do, and I was going to college. And I was like, I'm going to college. I'm not going to have time for any of this stuff anymore. But it turns out when you go to college, you do have time for this stuff anymore. So, like, about a year later, I started looking for places to come back to. And I got pointed towards Lisa. She handles Brad Jackson somewhere. She's still around. She's still wrestling somewhere. And she was in SAWF with me, and she kind of pointed me towards Primetime Central, the PTC Fed. She was in a Fed called Global, which is not only a combination of MMA and wrestling, but a combination of angle and roleplay as well.
A unique hybrid Fed.
A unique hybrid Fed that I had to post on the forums, and Lynn taunts me about to this day. And
don't worry, we'll get there.
Yeah. So I joined there, and I had pretty immediate success to the point where I made a lot of people there angry about being successful so quickly because they had a very tight group of people there.
Humble brag.
Yeah. Well, not really. But you can ask Dwayne about it sometime. He'll agree with me.
Our good friend Tony.
Our good friend Tony Dwayne. Yeah.
Twain.
Twain.
Our good friend Twain.
Or Donnie, whichever one you want to go with.
Tony. Oh, he's gonna hate this.
But yeah, so us and a group of people there kind of felt like we were not treated equally as the people who had been there for a long time, so we started looking for different feds to go to. It was me and Kat and James, who handled Don McFarlane, and Sean, who handled Seymour Almacy, who unfortunately passed away either earlier this year or at the end of last year. Pretty sad. But we initially applied to Prime, which where Lynn's was, and then they had told us that everyone could get in except for me.
Wow.
That I would have to go on a waiting list, but everyone else was free to go in. And luckily my friends kind of stuck by my side, and I'm like, well, if we can't all get in, then we'll go find somewhere else. And then that's how I ended up in GCW as Vivica. So.
Now, was that your first time handling a female character?
It was. I was a character named Christian Zenith in Global before, and then Vivica was actually his kind of manager. And I thought, I felt like whenever I handled male characters, that I would try very hard to make them different, but they would all end up being exactly the same person again.
Yeah.
And I was like, I gotta try to do something different than try to, make something that won't end up as the same dude that I always end up handling at the end of the day. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, maybe if I try girl, then she won't end up being the same dude because she's not a dude. That was my thought process behind it. So.
Makes sense. So, talk to me about some of the best rivalries that Vivica had.
The ones I remember off the top of my head is there's a guy named Rob who handled Lestat Knight there, who had been in GCW forever, and he's like a super cool dude. He's actually from Toledo, and we had a lot of fun doing angles together. He ended up being like the franchise heel of that Fed, and I ended up being like the franchise babyface of that Fed. So we would all go do our separate things, and then like 2 years later, we'd end up fighting each other again. Then we'd go do our separate things, and then 2 years later, we'd end up fighting each other again. So Rob and I always had our ongoing rivalry, and I also met Andy Murray there. And Andy and I, Andrew Murray. And we ended up we worked together at first, and then ended up working against each other, and we had a lot of fun, and that's probably my most memorable one, was probably working with Andy in GCW.
And so from the closure of GCW, what happened then?
When GCW closed, I had already kind of flirted with places like Prime. I had taken Elise to Prime before GCW closed.
So Elise was created at this point.
Yeah, Elise was created before GCW shut down. I had taken her to Prime with Kat because Kat was kind of done with GCW, but she wanted to go try something else part-time because she didn't think that she could handle the schedule by herself anymore. And I was like, well, I've been having a character I've been wanting to try out part-time anyway, which was my Elise character. And so we joined Prime as a tag team, and then halfway through, Kat ended up stopped showing up for things, and the tag team kind of turned into me by myself, and I won a tag championship there, and I won the 5-star title there, and it just became too much between I was practically running GCW at the same time, and then I was handling a championship character in Prime, and it just overwhelmed me, so I ended up quitting Prime and just going back to GCW full-time. And when GCW closed, all those PTC feds kind of closed around the same time. So I didn't really have anywhere else to go, and I just started a relationship with a girl, and we moved in together, and I was like, oh, this is kind of nerdy. I don't really want her to know about this, so maybe it's best that I just don't do this anymore for a while, and then I concentrate on relationship and see how that works out. So I'd actually left after GCW closed. And then once things didn't work out in that relationship, I was kind of stuck in a house for 11 months with an ex-girlfriend, and I kind of needed something to escape that situation, at least mentally. So I started looking for Efeds again, and I stumbled across Lynn's being in Legacy of Champions, and that's how I ended up in LSC on the FW forums.
So before we get into LOC, you mentioned that every time you would handle a different male character, they'd end up being the same. Did that same thing happen to you with Vivica and Elise, and if not, why?
No. So Vivica was, to an extent, I feel like she almost turned into the female version of that guy character, but in my mind it was different enough, and it felt different enough that I felt like I still accomplished something. So I was pretty happy with that way that turned out. And Elise and Vivica are not alike at all. They're still not alike at all. So whatever I did worked, and I still have thousands of ideas for male characters that I'm never going to be able to use because I just don't have time. But
Right. So for those out there who are not familiar with your work, tell us about Elise and Vivica and their personalities and the gimmick, and kind of, give us an overview.
So Vivica came in at a time in eWrestling where everyone was handling like serial killers and vampires, and do you remember all that?
Yeah, sadomasochistic role plays. And
Yeah. So Vivica's character was that she was just kind of like a normal person surrounded by all these characters. So like she was just a girl who like grew up in Chicago and ran away from home and came into wrestling without really any friends, and didn't start making friends with people. It's like, oh, you're friends. Oh, you're a vampire. Oh shit, that's something. So all my role plays were just kind of her being around all this shit, trying to process how all this works, and trying to concentrate on her wrestling career while being surrounded by human sacrifices and the like. And she really just turned into just a girl who really cared about wrestling and really cared about doing the right thing. And whenever she felt like somebody was being abused or taken advantage of, that she'd stick up for them, and she'd get herself into fights that she knew she couldn't win because it had a purpose behind them. And so she felt like the causes were bigger than herself.
Sure.
And that one of the causes were the fans, and so she became a big time babyface, sticking up for people and fighting fights that she thought were important and all that stuff, and just getting her ass beat repeatedly. So she was Tommy Dreamer, more or less,
Yeah,
I guess
there
is
you
a
go.
good comparison. He kind of ended up doing the same thing in ECW, but I didn't know that because I didn't watch ECW. I found that out later. So.
And then a complete 180 for Elise.
Yes, it is a complete 180 for Elise. Elise cares about herself, and she cares about being famous, and she cares about winning matches, and she doesn't really care much about anything else. She's like, did I win, and was I on camera? If so, fucking awesome. Let's keep doing that. Like recently in Defiance, I had that match where my tag team partner got jumped, and she was like, no, fuck this, and she just walked off.
She's not going to take a beating for no reason.
Yeah, seriously. She's like, I don't even know this guy. And then she just leaves. So
talk to us about working with Tom Ford and the formation of the Pop Culture Phenoms.
So when I was in Legacy of Champions as Vivica, Ford was there as Jack Harmon, and we were actually supposed to be in a stable together. That never happened because LSC ended up closing before we got there. But I had known Ford like everyone else forever before I went there. I had never like had a one-on-one conversation with Ford, but I knew him as like this mythical e-wrestling god that had been around e-wrestling forever. Like he was on the top tiers of Prime. He was one of the most respected people in PTC when I got there. And then whenever I would go into a new community, they'd be like, "Oh yeah, we know Tom Ford. He's been here for years. He won everything there is to win ever. And then he won the world title, and they shut down because that's Tom's legacy is he wins world championships and the Fed closes. But I had never had a one-on-one conversation with him, and we were just bullshitting in a Skype chat one time, and I said, you know what, I would join Defiance if I could find someone to tag with, because I just don't think I have time to run a full-time character. And then Tom private messaged me, and we never really even had a conversation before, and he's like, hey, I'll join with you if you want to go join Defiance. And I was like, what? And he was
yes, let's join.
Yes, he's like, yeah, I will join with you. He's like, tell me what kind of ideas that you have for characters, or that characters that you have run before, and then I'll compare it to what I have through all my characters I've handled, and we'll see if we can make something work, if we can come in as a tag team or something. So when I went through all the things, I told him about Elise and her very distinct character, and he's like, that's hilarious. I have this tag team called the Pop Culture Phenoms of Klein and, Derek Edwards, who are, one of them the Hollywood director, and the other one has a box for a head. And I was like,
perfect.
It's perfect. Yeah, I said, I don't even like the name. We'll just keep the name. And then he was like, yeah, but Derek Edwards, his name needs to be less appropriate, so we're just going to refer to him as the D.
The D.
And I was like, okay, that sounds good.
Elise and the D. I love it.
Elise and the D. So we ended up joining, and then Ford and I actually became like really good friends after that. So I still talk to him like almost every day, and we play games together, and we do lots of non-eWrestling related things together. And I made one of my best friends that day through eWrestling. So that was pretty cool.
That's awesome. And when you joined Defiance, I thought you were trying to encroach on my gimmick.
Yes, when I joined Defiance, I almost immediately got declined because I was told I was stealing Mikey Unlikely's gimmick.
That's right, you bastard. So
I had no idea.
I put my little boo-boo face on and said, I don't like it.
I remember...
And then they talked me into it, and they said not only should they join, but we should all be friends, and we should all be in a stable together.
Right. So when I joined, they were like, yeah, so we'll let you guys in under one condition. There's this guy named Mikey Unlikely who just joined the Fed, and he applied with your application like 3 weeks before you applied with your application.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, I didn't see that. So we went back and looked at it, and it was like, oh, shit.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that we did that. And then Ford and I were all worried about it. Ford's like, we'll work with them, and we'll see how this goes, and if this is something you really want to do. And I was like, it is. We can make some more friends, so we can get this done. And then I was forced into the Sports Entertainment Guild with Mikey Unlikely and Kendricks.
The Sports Entertainment Guild. That's my segue into the seg section of of the interview. So, Billy, besides working with me, what was the best part of being in seg?
The best part of being in seg was working with you.
Besides working with me, it was working with me. I mean,
yeah. Working with you is first, second, and third. we have to sell some shirts, son.
That's right. We got to show that shit.
But I was really impressed by how good you and Kendricks were. So I was kind of going into it like, these guys probably think that we're trying to take their gimmick from them, and they're probably going to be all pissy towards us, and I don't want to start shit, and I just hope they're cool about it, and you guys were super cool about it.
It turned into one of the most fun times I've ever had in eFedding. Writing the 4-way segments with you and Ford and Stevie, of course. It was in tears just writing them, let alone letting other people read them.
Yeah, so the segments were definitely the best part. They didn't even feel like work. It was like I would be excited to come home and like open up a doc. You'd be like, hey guys, let's go in this doc and just write this fucking hysterical segment that we're about to go write.
Someone says, hey, we started this and this is how it starts, and I'm like, oh my god, I can't wait to add to that.
Right. And yeah, that's exactly what Ford and I would do. We would get super excited. And then we're like, one day this is going to have to blow up, and that's going to be bad. It's going to be a lot less fun, but it's something that needs to be done.
Yeah. So unfortunately, the Sports Entertainment Guild, the Hollywood Brovs, and the Pop Culture Phenoms all together had an amazing run in Defiance, but it all came crashing to an end. But who knows what the future holds?
Who knows what the future holds? Three-fourths of the Sports Entertainment Guild are still floating around Defiance, so
They certainly are.
so you never know.
After the Sports Entertainment Guild, Elise Ares made a face turn.
Yes, that was probably the most difficult face turn of my entire life.
It's hard to play that character as a face, but I think you pulled it off well. Loved the masked gimmick. I'll let you get into all of that. But tell us about the face run, and tell us about Elise Ares' long title run.
So, when I was in Prime, I had joined. Well, before that, Kat had a separate Fed called the BACW that she ran. It was like a 4-person Fed. It wasn't like anything serious. But she had this tournament for different characters that she called the Masquerade Tournament. And then the tournament was that there were like 8 masked fighters in a tournament against each other. And then when one of them would lose, they would become unmasked and you'd find out what their true identity was. So none of the writers were known before the matches. You would just find out who the writer of the loser was when they lost their match.
Wow.
And my idea for Elise was, because I already had Elise in Prime, and her background was that her father was like this rich, famous luchador who wants nothing to do with her because she's just a terrible person. And so the gimmick was that she was outcasted from Lucha Libre for being just such a fucking terrible person. So she'd become like this super villain in Lucha Libre. And I came up with the name Amethysta just because it was purple and it sounded funny. And so I had ran that gimmick as Amethysta, and I had run it as if she were a supervillain who had a secret lair underneath her one-bedroom apartment in Miami, Florida. So she would come home as like Elise, and then she would pet her cat named Catastrophe. Mm-hmm. And then she would go into a closet in her bedroom that would take her down to a supervillain lair where she would just do stupid, ridiculous things and try to make really bad jokes. And that worked out for a while. And I thought when we were in Defiance and that came up, I'm like, you know what? I could bring that back. So
it worked out well.
So I was like, I could put her back under the mask and do Amethysta and just give her all this stupid superhero stuff because she's supposed to be a good guy now instead of a bad guy. And just make her like this Mr. America, Hulk Hogan style superhero where everyone in the Fed completely knows who's under the mask, because if there's one thing Elise wants is she wants everyone to know that she's Elise.
Yeah.
So she would go around and go superhero things, and she'd do everything short of saying, "Oh, by the way, I'm Elise," and then leave. But yeah, it's because she was she was banned from having title shots. Is that what it was?
Yeah, she couldn't have another shot at the Southern Heritage title. So here comes Amethysta joining the Fed.
She joined as a what was it? It was a Brazen International showcase or something like that. You know, it was like a contestant from the Brazen International division.
It was fantastic, and one of my favorite angles over the last year in Defiance, and so much fun. Writing comedy is such a great time, and when you can blend comedy into a good babyface storyline, it works out great.
Yeah, so I had a ton of fun with that, working with Jay Harvey and doing all that stuff, even though he kind of dropped off the planet at the end, but I had a lot of fun with him while he was there. And
love you, Will.
I'm glad that he let me do all my stupid ass mass shenanigans with his character. So, because I know there's still a lot of people around eWrestling who are like, my character can't fight a girl. So,
yep. Awesome.
So I appreciated it.
So, and then talk to us about the Southern Heritage title run.
I never expected to have a singles title run as Elise, like, ever. Like, she came in as, like, a comedy tag character, and I was like, I might win a few tag team championships, and I don't really have the time to handle her outside of Ford anyway. So I'm just going to go and get with my friends and write as much funny shit as I possibly can and have a great time and get out. And that's kind of what my mentality was. And anybody who knows me knows I probably never thought I was good enough to win anything major anyway. And when I was forced to split up, LSC had already closed. So I was like, I guess I can try to write by myself and try to do something. So when they were putting me in the Southern Heritage title match and they're like, "I'm going to have you win," I'm like, "You want Elise to hold a championship in Defiance?" Like, that was my legitimate reaction. I'm like, that is a fucking terrible idea. Why would you want Elise to have a championship in Defiance? But I was like, all right, if you guys think that's a good idea, let's do it. And then somehow that turned into the longest reigning Southern Heritage Championship in history.
That's right.
And on the last show, I think I said that like 12 times on the card that she was currently...
I'm going to have to do a segment where Mikey doesn't even realize his record's been beaten twice already. And he just thinks he's still got the record.
Yeah.
Just brushes people off.
Well, technically, didn't he hold the SoCal or something?
The the Ho-Her.
The Ho-Her, the Hollywood Heritage Championship. Yeah, the SoCal was Elise's that she had for a month.
Great dick move, just change the name of the title you're carrying.
Yeah. At least just so she could look at herself. And then she realized that, wrestling is more important than looking at yourself, kind of.
Kind of.
Yeah, just maybe a little bit sometimes.
Speaking of looking at ourselves, it's time for the Twitter questions, Billy. Are you ready?
No, but let's go on anyway.
All right, there's a whole lot of ridiculousness, and speaking of ridiculousness, it's Rickdiculous. Up first, at Rickdiculous, or at RickDickDPW, is your mom hot?
Well, she's like 60-something, so I guess that's all relative.
Ooh,
I guess one could find her hot.
Rick, are you into GILFs?
Yeah, are you into GILFs?
And is she single?
She is not single.
So you gotta fight for her, Rick.
Yeah.
Okay. Question number 2, at IW Puddings. This is a two-parter, so let me finish. Billy, who would win in a shooting duel, Doc Holliday or Jimmy Bonafide?
You mean Jimmy Bonafide is what you mean.
Bonafide.
Jimmy Bonafide.
At Hail the Queen LT threw in, the answer to this question must only be broadcast on 106 in Park. Sorry, I don't make the rules.
I think that I would like to throw Jack Hunter into that mix. Jack Hunter would be a great addition into that fight.
He's gonna be the interference.
Yeah, some interference. All these great inner joke comedy jobbers that have been in eWrestling over the years. But yeah, let's go with Bonafide, but it could change depending on who woke up sore that morning.
Okay, at Queen of the Ring, do you feel like you have any regrets or unfinished business from the PTC days, or are you pretty happy with that chapter of your writing life? I'll finish the next question after you answer that one.
I don't feel like I accomplished a lot in GCW, and I was happy with that, but I don't really feel like I ever did anything of note in PTC. I don't really think I did anything to be respected or whatever. So to that extent, I kind of feel like I could have done more, or I could have done better. But at the end of the day, like, I feel like I've always done good jobs in my home feds. And because I've done good jobs with my home feds, I guess I sleep better at night knowing that if given more properties than just a one-off writing contest, that I can bring more to the table. So that's kind of where I stand on all that.
You've now had some success with Elise, Solo, and Defiance. Do you think you would have had the same success in Prime had you stuck it out post-tag team split with Kat? There was a short 5-star title run in there after all.
I don't. I mean, there were so many good people in Prime, like Linz and Seth and Ford, and in competitive roleplay environments, I guess I still don't really think I'm the best writer in the world, and I feel like I have lots of flaws. And I think that I don't know if I ever could have won the Universal Championship in Prime. Although I appreciate that some people may think that I could have, but with all those people there, I couldn't imagine myself doing better with Elise than I did, and I was really happy that they finally let me in the door in the first place, honestly. So, I was just happy with what I could get in, and that I was allowed to play it all, and kind of left with that on my wall that I'm not the guy who got rejected from Prime anymore. I got in. So.
There you go. Redemption story. At Ron Hall's brick and mortar Lucha Mask store. Why do hot dogs come in packs of 8 and buns in pack of 6?
They've changed that recently. Sometimes buns will come in packs of 8 and hot dogs will come in packs of 6.
Oh, makes sense with the game.
As someone who is very familiar with the grocery industry.
How do they cram all that gram into golden grams?
I have no idea. The world may never know.
They may never know. Speaking of never know, why doesn't any respectable retailer honor Mikey money?
That I've pitched for it several times at Kroger. They have something inferior called Wow Bucks that they go with.
Oh, that is inferior.
Yeah, why would you ever go with Wow Bucks if you could go with Mikey money instead? But I don't live in Cincinnati, so I can't make the decisions, unfortunately.
There's a lot of decisions I wish I could make in Cincinnati.
Don't we both?
From Roland in Defiance. Is Billy a sad NFL can these days?
Yes, I am. I'm a very sad NFL. Did you say can?
That's what he wrote. I don't know.
I'm a very sad NFL can these days.
You're a very sad tin can. Billy.
Yes. The Joe Burrow era is about to begin in Cincinnati, and
Burrow.
And I just hope he doesn't die week 1 behind that offensive line.
My God. And for those of you out there who don't know, which is absolutely everybody, Billy and I are both Bengals fans. We're both here in the state of Ohio. We're both good buds. Aww. Also from Roland in Defiance. What does Billy think of the color orange?
I watched My Color Orange for some reason beat Another Color Orange on Sunday. I'm not real sure how that happened.
It was.
But I guess their orange is more brown, and I was always taught if it was brown that you flush it down. So.
Does Billy enjoy Skittles?
I do enjoy Skittles. Who doesn't enjoy Skittles?
What's your favorite Skittle, Billy?
Probably the red ones. I'm a big cherry fan.
Billy, does the paranormal exist?
I was told by my parents that I grew up in a haunted house, so I would guess that it does. My parents told me that I had an imaginary friend named Amanda who lived in my closet that I used to talk to, and they said that they sometimes would see a little girl in the attic, so they were afraid that I was talking to the ghost who lived in the attic, and they said sometimes I would talk to an old man who lived in my television.
Oh,
and
well, that was Mr. Rogers.
Yeah, I was too young to remember any of this. This is all just stories from them.
Did the little girl whisper, Lake Placid 6?
Yes. You will someday fight a robotic crocodile.
Last question from Roland. When will PCP be a tag team again?
PCP never stopped being a tag team again if you count Klein.
Hey.
But if you...
Continuity.
But, you never know. So just keep watching Defiance television, and maybe one day soon you'll see it happen.
Awesome. Question from Seth in Defiance. What are the best angles you've been a part of and the worst angle you've been a part of?
The best angles I've been a part of, I already kind of touched on a little bit. It was like Andy Murray and Lestat Knight and Defiance.
And Entertainment Guild.
The Sports Entertainment Guild. And I really enjoyed my one Matt LaCroix angle with Brian that I ran. And that's a character I've always wanted to do and just haven't had time. So I really enjoyed getting to do my one Matt LaCroix angle.
And the worst?
And the worst? Every person who I've ever had to have a match against in a Fed where they've been in the Fed for like 12 years and they still don't know how to write a role play, and their character is 7.5 feet tall, and they're like 300 pounds, and they can power bomb you and then hit you with a double shooting star press, and then they don't bleed, and they don't take damage, and they don't sell, and yeah. I feel like I've had one of those angles in every Fed besides my latest run in LOC and Defiance. I think I've ran into one of those in every single Fed I'd ever been in until then.
Just wait, we got some new signees. Here we go.
There's still time.
Who would win in a match between Elise Ares and Vivica Valentine?
Well, I would hope Vivica would win that match. It shouldn't necessarily be a difficult match for her. She just has to make sure Elise doesn't pull any stupid fucking shenanigans on her, and she should be fine.
From Dwayne in Defiance. How come you can't write a male character that isn't crap?
I don't know. I've been wondering that for my entire life.
I'm sorry, that was at Twain.
At Twain. Twain in Defiance.
At Doney.
Yeah, I've tried my entire life to write male characters that aren't crap. Just female ones ended up working out better for me, so.
At Marcus in Defiance. A lot of Defiance questions. Why did Elise leave Dex Joy behind? Because that was kind of mean.
Yeah, because she only cares about herself.
We've been over this.
Yes. If it involves her not getting hurt and then her still being on camera, she's cool.
This one's from Tom Ford. If you've never joined Defiance as the PCP, and LOC closed down as it did in 2016, would you still be in the hobby, and would you have found your way to Defiance on your own?
I think I would have. Defiance was the only Fed I still knew was kind of out there that I had connections to, because Linz was still in Defiance at the time, and Andy Murray was still in Defiance at the time. And I think I would have ended up there probably as Vivica instead of Elise. So that would have changed a lot of things. But I'm having a lot more fun as Elise than I think I ever would have had as Vivica. And I kind of felt like I was running out of ideas with Vivica. So I'm really glad I joined with Elise instead, even though she is an infinitely worse character for Defiance than Vivica.
Yes, my application was almost rejected on the basis that he wouldn't fit.
Yeah, my character was terrible for Defiance, but I'm like, oh, fuck it, let's give it.
All right, final question from Andy Murray. How did Billy get to be so manly?
It took years of practice, and to this day, it still takes me like a month and a half to grow a beard. So
they're still researching it down at MIT.
Yeah. So apparently, being this manly takes lots of patience and not owning a razor.
Oh, very good. All right, Billy. Before we go, is there anything else you want to promote, plug, shout out to? Anybody you want to say F you to? Anything like that?
Nah. Check out the Atomic Dropcast. I watched it during the first run, and you guys are doing the second run, and I really enjoyed it.
Yes.
And I had that one episode that was like so much fun to record with you guys. I was laughing my ass off the entire time. And there's T-shirts that I will one day order once I get some more moolah.
There you go.
And that'll be good. And just we could always use some more people at Defiance. So if you're out there and you're interested in joining Defiance, go to DefianceWrestling.com and check us out. Keep us in mind if you're out there looking for a Fed. We could use a few good handlers. So
absolutely, DefianceWrestling.com, an Angle Fed. It's been around for a long time. Very laid back. Got a cool Fed head. We got a lot of great handlers. We got Mikey Unlikely, myself. You're gonna have fun if I'm there. Crickets. All right, Billy, thanks for coming on, man. Really appreciate you doing the interview. This is a lot of fun.
No problem, man. Thanks for having me on.
All right, go Joe Burrow.
Go Joe Burrow.
What a great interview. I want to thank Billy once again for coming on the show. Go Bengals, Joe Burrow, here we go. Appreciate him taking the time, and appreciate all of you for listening. I want to thank our sponsors, the EWC, the Extreme Wrestling Corporation. Check them out at ewc4life.com. Great Fed, great community, great people. Check out the Atomic Dropcast, that's my other podcast, at atomicdropcast.com, or search Atomic Dropcast on any podcast platform, and you'll find us there. Check out DefianceWrestling.com. Great angle fed. Been there for a while. I'm having a blast writing over there. You guys should come on over to DefianceWrestling.com, another great sponsor. And with that, I want to wish everybody a happy new year, and thank you for listening to the Efed podcast on the Atomic Dropcast Network, where the wrestling is written, but the characters are real.